The stars shimmered like cold, distant sentinels as the broadcast echoed across 100 systems. In the heart of the Milky Way, where the galactic Concorde held its seat of power, transmission was sent out cold, direct, and without emotion. It was not a negotiation. It was a declaration. To the government of Earth and all human colonies, by a vote of majority within the galactic Concorde, humanity is hereby declared a hostile entity. Effective immediately, all Concorde forces are authorized to engage, disarm, or eliminate human military assets. Earth is to be occupied for the safety of the galaxy. The message played on every interstellar channel. 62 alien civilizations had agreed. The verdict was unanimous. Humanity, barely 50 years into interstellar travel, had been labeled too volatile, too independent, too unpredictable. On Earth, the reaction was swift but eerily calm. World governments, once divided by old rivalries, united under a single banner the moment the transmission ended. The United Earth Command knew this day might come. The warning signs had been there for years. Diplomatic sidesteps, subtle restrictions in trade routes, peacekeeping patrols that hovered too close to human colonies. The Concorde had dropped the mask. They wanted Earth silent, obedient, or gone. But Earth was not without defenses. Deep beneath the oceans of the Pacific, in a classified naval base hidden from orbital scans, a red alert flashed through the command decks of Project Aegis. Years in development. Built in secret under the cover of civilian research, it was humanity's answer to the growing threat, the ISV Valiant Dawn. The ship was unlike anything ever built before, powered by a prototype dark matter reactor and wrapped in adaptive stealth plating. It was designed for speed, deception, and precise disruption. It wasn't a battleship, it was a ghost. And it had one mission: keep humanity alive no matter the cost. The crew, handpicked from every corner of Earth, boarded in silence. There were only 30 of them: engineers, pilots, intelligence officers, specialists in alien tech, and soldiers with combat experience across the outer colonies. Each one had passed not only the most difficult tests known to man, but also had volunteered, knowing the risk. At the helm stood Commander Alina Rourke, a woman whose record was filled with commendations and court-martials in equal measure. Known for disobeying direct orders in order to save lives, she had been both praised and punished, but above all, respected. She had a mind for strategy that unnerved even the most advanced AI systems. When she spoke, the crew listened. Orders were clear. We're not here to win the war. We're here to make them think twice about ever starting one again. The launch was quiet. No parades, no speeches, just a silent departure under a moonless sky. The Valiant Dawn slipped out of Earth's atmosphere without so much as a flicker, its stealth systems blending it with the blackness of space. Even Concorde sensors wouldn't detect it. Not yet. The crew gathered in the command deck, watching as Earth grew smaller on the screen. No one spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't fire, it was focus. Every person on board understood what they were carrying: the hope of an entire species. Far above, Concorde fleets were already on the move. Dozens of warships cruised toward the solar system, expecting light resistance. Their analysts had calculated Earth's strength, judged it insufficient. Their confidence came from experience. Every time a new species resisted the Concorde, it fell. But they hadn't fought humans before. They didn't understand what desperation, when mixed with innovation, could create. They didn't know what it meant to corner a species that had evolved by surviving the impossible. They were about to find out. In the Valiant Dawn's war room, glowing displays revealed the latest intelligence. Supply routes, command centers, fleet locations all mapped and updated in real time using stolen Concorde data. Lena stood with her arms crossed, her eyes scanning the projections. They think we'll defend Earth directly, she said quietly. They think we'll wait for them to come to us. She turned to her crew. We won't. We'll go to them first. We'll show them what one ship, one crew, and one decision can do. The first targets weren't military. They were strategic. Communications relays, fuel depots, unmanned factories, places that would paralyze Concorde response times without shedding blood. The goal wasn't destruction, it was disruption. They wouldn't understand how it was happening. even know who was responsible. And by the time they figured it out, the valiant Dawn would be long gone, already 3 moves ahead. Back on Earth, people watched the stars waiting. Some feared the end, others prayed. But a few knew, deep in their hearts, that something was out there watching over them. Not a fleet, not an army, it's just a single ship with a purpose. The valiant Dawn moved through the darkness, as quiet as a shadow, carrying the silent fury of a world that refused to kneel. It had no anthem. It carried no flag. It didn't need one. It was the last word in a sentence the Concorde had started. A message written in stars, meant for those who thought humanity would break. And in that silence, Commander Rourke whispered the words that only her crew could hear. They declared war. Let's teach them why that was a mistake. The silence of deep space shattered abruptly as the Concorde fleet detected an unassuming human supply ship drifting near a disputed asteroid belt, an easy target. Or so they thought. The fleet's commanders, confident in their overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, ordered their ships to converge and capture the vessel without delay. But they had no idea what was waiting for them in the shadows. The ISV Valiant Dawn, cloaked in near-perfect stealth, slipped from its hiding place with deadly precision. Utilizing experimental kinetic slingshot weapons, it fired projectiles that bent space-time itself, striking the first wave of Concorde vessels with sudden, devastating force. At the same time, gravity distortion fields warped the space around the fleet, disrupting sensors and throwing their coordinated maneuvers into chaos. One by one, 12 warships were crippled or forced to retreat, their weapon systems disabled. Without a single shot fired in retaliation, alien commanders stared in disbelief as their carefully planned assault unraveled before their eyes, unable to locate the ghost ship responsible for the carnage. Communications were jammed, orders tangled, and panic spread through the ranks as the Valiant Dawn vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a trail of stunned silence. Meanwhile, aboard the ship, Commander Alina Rourke's crew moved with focused calm, knowing their unexpected victory was just the beginning. Back on Earth and across human colonies, intercepted Concorde transmissions were broadcast for all to hear, revealing the arrogant assumptions, the fear and confusion spreading through the alien alliance. The Galactic Concorde's justification for war, once accepted by many, began to crumble as the truth leaked out. They had underestimated humanity's will and ingenuity. Rumors of the ghost ship spread like wildfire, inspiring hope among oppressed worlds and stirring doubts even within Concorde member species. In a secret war council, voices rose in anger and desperation as alien leaders debated their next move. An admiral, his tone grave and weary, warned his peers that this was no longer a simple conflict. This ... is not a war, he said quietly. It is a mistake, and the humans are correcting it. His words hung heavy in the air, a chilling admission that the tide had shifted. The Valiant Dawn was no longer just a ship, it was a symbol. A message sent from a species refusing to be conquered. The galaxy watched, waiting to see what this lone human vessel would do next. Whispers of rebellion began to spread like sparks in dry grass across the Concorde's outer worlds, especially among the smaller species who had been forced into war under promises of protection and shared power. Many of them had no voice in the war council and no desire to fight, but had been pulled in through fear and manipulation.
Ow.
As reports of the Valiant Dawn's mysterious victories reached their ears, a new feeling took root: hope. They saw the humans not as invaders or threats, but as symbols of resistance, standing alone against a vast empire and somehow surviving. The name Ghost Ship echoed in hidden chambers and encrypted networks. In the prayers of those who had lost faith in the Concorde's rule, Commander Alina Rourke and her crew continued their precise raids with unmatched skill, targeting fuel depots, relay stations, and key communication hubs. They never lingered, never struck the same way twice, and never caused unnecessary destruction. Instead of leaving death, they left silent systems shut down, weapons deactivated, and in some cases, prisoners freed. More than once, the Valiant Dawn dropped into a Concorde prison station, freed alien prisoners who had spoken against the war, and disappeared before alarms could fully sound. Each operation was a message, not just to the Concorde, but to every species watching from the sidelines. Humanity was not only fighting for itself, it was fighting to prove that no power, no matter how large, was untouchable. The Concorde, frustrated and humiliated, devised a trap, using an intercepted frequency known to be monitored by the Valiant Dawn. They crafted a fake surrender message, claiming a Concorde ship was defecting and requesting asylum. They laced the transmission with subtle emotional cues designed to appeal to human compassion and trust. But Alina had seen too many traps to fall into this one blindly. She ordered a quiet shadow operation instead, sending a small drone fleet to scan the coordinates, monitor power fluctuations, and decode background chatter. What they found confirmed her suspicion. Behind the false signal was a full Concorde strike fleet, hiding in the asteroid shadows, waiting for the Valiant Dawn to walk into their ambush. But the ambush would not go as planned. Instead of arriving blindly, Alina had her crew flip the situation. Using cloaked drones and deep space hacking protocols, they fed false sensor data to the Concorde ships, causing them to believe the Valiant Dawn was approaching from a different angle. At the same time, the human ship launched a coordinated strike. Using precision kinetic warheads, silent, invisible, and impossible to track, crippling the lead vessels before the rest of the fleet even realized they were under attack. Panic followed as Concorde ships fired blindly into space, damaging their own in the confusion. A swarm of electromagnetic bursts scrambled their internal systems, cutting communications and navigation. Within 40 minutes, the trap had become a graveyard. 27 Concorde ships were lost, the rest forced to retreat without firing a single accurate shot.
Ow.
No human casualties were reported. As news of the failed ambush spread, so did the silence in the Concorde High Council. What was meant to be a turning point had become a disaster. Alina Rourke and her crew had outmaneuvered, and outplayed them again. In the aftermath, protests broke out on several Concorde-lined planets. Workers refused to ship weapons. Technicians leaked documents, and more species quietly reached out to human channels offering support or information. The morale within the Concorde began to fracture, not because of overwhelming force, but because the illusion of control was fading. The Valiant Dawn, a single ship, had shaken the foundations of an empire built on fear. And far from home, in the cold silence of space, its captain sat in the dim glow of the command deck, listening to the confused Concorde transmissions. No celebration, no loud words, just quiet understanding between a captain and her crew. They were not winning by brute strength. They were winning because they refused to play by the enemy's rules. In the heart of the Concorde's capital world, beneath a sky filled with artificial stars and layered spires of crystal architecture, the High Council sat in chaos. Place of calm debate and firm control, the chamber now echoed with the sounds of fear, frustration, and fractured unity. Representatives from powerful species shouted over one another, blaming each other for failed strategies and costly losses. Some demanded immediate peace talks, claiming that continued war would only invite rebellion from their own people. Others insisted on full escalation, deploying more fleets, activating ancient weapons, and silencing humanity before their influence spread any further. But beneath all the noise was a shared truth that none dared say aloud. They had no idea how to stop a single human ship. The Valiant Dawn had become more than a threat. It was a mystery, an uncatchable shadow tearing through their fleets and exposing the weaknesses in their systems. It was then that a signal reached Commander Alina Rourke's ship, originating from a border world governed by a minor species long treated as second-class members of the Concorde. The message was simple but shocking. They wanted to defect. In exchange for sanctuary, they offered access to highly restricted Concorde intelligence, the location of the central AI nexus that controlled the Alliance's vast network of automated drone fleets and logistical systems. The information was verified, double-checked, and confirmed by Rourke's intel team. It was real, but so was the risk. The nexus was located deep inside Concorde territory, buried beneath a secure data world protected by planetary shields, AI guardians, and defense. Grids unlike anything the Valiant Dawn had ever faced. It was a suicide mission by every standard measure, but Rourke didn't rely on standard thinking. She gathered her crew, explained the objective, and gave every person the option to back out. Not a single one did. They knew what was at stake. The mission was prepared in total silence. The ship would approach using a rarely used route through a dead star system, masking its energy signature behind collapsing radiation fields. Once inside the planet's orbit, the crew would deploy a series of cloaked drones to scramble surface defenses, while a team infiltrated the AI core from orbit using a drop pod modified for deep-piercing descent. Every move had to be timed to the second. As the plan unfolded, even the AI Guardians hesitated, confused by the silent, untraceable disruptions in their code. Systems began to glitch, access gates looped, and defenses turned on one another. Elena's team reached the core enormous, crystalline lattice that pulsed with data from across the Concorde's empire. A specially crafted virus, written in part by human engineers and in part by the defecting species, was injected directly into the system. Within moments, the AI began to stutter. Across hundreds of star systems, automated fleets lost guidance. Supply chains shut down mid-transit. Concorde warships stopped receiving orders. It was as if the heart of the Empire had simply stopped beating. The Valiant Dawn escaped under cover of the confusion, disappearing once again into deep space, but the damage was done. The once uncheckable control the Concorde held over its territories now slipped through its fingers. Inside the high chamber, silence fell at last, not from order, but from realization. Their war machine, built over centuries, had been broken in one strike. For the first time, fear turned inward. If one ship could do this, what would happen if others joined them? If more species rose up? What if the Concorde itself began to collapse? The leaders who had once spoken of conquest and domination now whispered of mistakes and miscalculations. An emergency signal was sent through diplomatic channels, stripped of threats and pride. It read only one thing: "We are ready to talk." Aboard the Valiant Dawn, Alina sat quietly in the captain's chair as her crew read the message aloud. No cheers followed, just a heavy silence filled with purpose. The ship had done what no one believed possible. Peace, they knew, would not come easily. Still, the first step had been taken, not through brute force, but through courage, cleverness, and the refusal to give up. The tide had truly turned. The skies above the neutral station of Varello's Prime shimmered with the approach of ships, bearing the Concorde's golden insigniat in formation for war, but in slow, cautious patterns that spoke of surrender. These were not warships. They were diplomatic cruisers, unarmed, marked with the white lights of peace. The first time since the beginning of the war, the mighty Concorde had come not to dictate terms, but to ask for them. Aboard the Valiant Dawn, still scarred from battle, but standing strong and defiant in orbit, Commander Alina Rourke prepared to receive the delegation. Her crew moved quietly, their expressions unreadable, their uniforms worn but proud.
No medals
had been handed out, no parades planned, yet every person on that ship knew they had done something no one else in the galaxy had ever done. They had made the most powerful alliance in known spacebend. The Concorde envoys stepped aboard the Valiant Dawn under heavy silence, their eyes scanning the ship's war-damaged walls, the energy scoring from near-miss plasma shots, and the calm, steady gaze of the humans who had survived it all. When they entered the main conference chamber, Lena stood waiting, not behind a wall of guards or beneath any flag, but alone as herself. She offered no smile, but neither did she show anger. She listened in silence as the lead envoy, voice shaking slightly, admitted that the Concorde could no longer afford this war. They acknowledged the fault, the misjudgment, and extended a non-aggression, packed along with material reparations for the damage caused. But what struck the humans most was not the offer, it was the tone. The words were not polished declarations. They were humbled, tired, and real. Alina listened, then nodded once. Instead of delivering threats or demanding tribute, She asked her crew to open the ship's main broadcast systems. Across dozens of systems on planets still uncertain, on outposts watching in silence, on Concord worlds where rebellion simmered beneath the surface, her message played clearly and calmly. "We don't want your fear," she said, standing before the flickering lights of the stars, her voice steady and measured. "We want your respect. Let this be the last war we ever fight. Let this be the start of something better." She didn't speak long. She didn't need to. The truth carried more weight than threats ever could. And the galaxy listened. In the days that followed, formal documents were signed, boundaries redrawn, and warships called home. Concord member species, once locked into an alliance built on fear, began speaking more openly, questioning old ways, finding new hope in the possibility of balance. The Valiant Dawn completed one final jump to Earth as it descended into orbit. Passing over the cloud layer and through Earth's golden sunrise, it was not met with fireworks or noise, but with a solemn, unified silence. Across continents, in colonies, people stood together, watching the sky, hand over heart or head bowed in thought. Not in grief, but in awe. One ship, one crew, one mission. They had survived where none were expected to. They had fought not just with weapons, but with heart, mind, and unshakable will. And now they returned not as conquerors, but as defenders of something greater. Humanity had proven it did not need to dominate to stand tall. It had earned its place not through force, but through courage and conviction. And though the galaxy might still doubt, one thing had changed forever. Humanity would never again be underestimated.